with us.
Yes.
Is this the young, handsome version of Dr. Paul?
I wouldn't go that far.
You're welcome to Freedom Watch with Judge Napolitano, with Peter Schiff.
And with Cody Willard. Now, you and Schiff have something in common, and that is a groundswell amongst a lot of people who are watching and listening to us now that want you both to run for the United States Senate. Is there any truth to that?
Well, a lot of it depends on what Senator Bunning decides. Every day there's some question whether or not he will run or not, and he says he is going to run, but then the second question is, are you really going to run again? And so we have to wait and see what happens. I will not oppose him in the primary, but should he drop out, I think I can become the conservative voice for the Senate race in Kentucky.
Are you going to run against Chris Dodd?
Well, now there's rumors that Larry Kudlow wants to run against.
Not even rumors. He confirmed it.
Well, I read some articles that he said he was thinking about it, and I don't know that he's going to go that direction. I think there's a lot of stuff that might come out, from the way political battles are, and he's got a decent gig where he is right now. But I'm not entertaining it seriously right now.
There's a lot of people that are.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's probably a good idea for a lot of people to think about it.
Dr. Paul, I'd ask you, you use the term conservative, and I cringe every time I hear anyone use the word conservative as much as as when they use the term liberal. I can't tell the difference anymore. You're going to run as a Republican, on the conservative platform, or are we going to go as a free-thinking individualist?
Well, I think you're right that the old guard in the Republican Party that used to be maybe the Reagan wing of the party either doesn't exist anymore or doesn't really have believability. So the word conservative has become an empty term anymore, and some like the term libertarian more. But I think the thing is that we need new, young, fresh people who haven't been corrupted by the Washington atmosphere, people who have the guts to vote against budget deficits, whether they're Republican or Democrat. I'd say fully 90% of Republicans voted Bush's deficits.
I'd ask both of you guys then, is it, and that's just it. The Republican Party is part of the problem, not the answer.
Absolutely. George Bush destroyed any meaning to the word conservative Republican by the things he did in that name. What has become of the Barry Goldwater wing of the Republican Party? What has become of no offensive, illegal wars, of states' rights, of maximum individual liberty, and of sound money? That's not the present Republican Party.
What we need, unfortunately, the labels are meaningless now. I think Obama is the conservative because he wants to conserve all the failed policies of the past. What we need to do is probably retake the word liberal, which used to mean change.
Absolutely.
Freedom and liberty, individual liberty and property rights. Because there's nothing left to conserve. I want to dismantle everything.
How about that? Are we all
trying
liberals,
to conserve.
Dr. Paul? Are we all liberals now in the true sense of the word?
Was that directed to me?
Amen, yes.
Well, I often tell people that I think George Bush has made Bill Clinton look like a fiscal conservative. So the terms have become topsy-turvy, and we have to create some kind of new believability. And that really does mean somebody from the outside. Obama gets up now and says when the Republicans give him a hard time on the stimulus, he says, who are you to criticize me? You doubled the deficit from $5 to $10 trillion. Who are you to criticize me? And he has a point. So you have to have a new generation of Republicans aren't stigmatized by having voted for all the Bush deficits.
Well, the government needs an opposition. The government obviously has to have somebody there to check it, to challenge it, to expose it, and to keep it transparent. What did you think, Dr. Paul, of the dust-up in the past few days between Governor Steele and Rush Limbaugh? A, do you care about it? B, is it healthy? C, is the Republican Party a legitimate opposition for Barack Obama's administration?
I think the problem is that the Republican leadership goes with the wind and hasn't really had the guts to have any true ideology. And so the true ideologues on the outside have become more the spokesmen of the party. But I think it shows a vacuum in the party, and it's also what the Democrats like, because they do like to have Rush Limbaugh be their punching bag. But it's really not Rush Limbaugh that's the problem. It's the problem that the Republican Party has a vacuum of consistency. They look hypocritical on spending, and you've got to have new people.
Yeah. And I think part of the problem is the Republicans are afraid to oppose the president Because let's say they do manage to block some of his agenda and the economy gets worse, which it will. They're going to say, well, it's your fault because you didn't allow our stimulus package. You didn't let Obama fix the problem. The Republicans would rather go along with it, let it fail, which it will, and then try to run against that. If they let him have everything he wants and the economy gets much worse, they have an issue in 4 years.
Why do so few people fail to see the common thread and the common culture amongst the ruling class, no matter what they call themselves? They all want power. They all don't care about individual liberty. They all don't care about sound money. They just want to be able to control things, whether they call themselves Republicans or Democrats.
You know, I truly believe, and I think I've seen a groundswell of it over the last year in the viewers' responses and my email flow and in the general public, that they are recognizing it. They don't like it anymore. They are insulted. The general public is now insulted when the Republicans and Democrats frame things as conservative versus liberal, as right versus left. I had Ann Coulter on the Happy Hour a few weeks ago, and I grilled her on that very thing, and of course she has no answers. The entire book was calling the left out on something. I couldn't tell what the left was from page 1 versus what right was on page 2.
Go ahead, Peter.
Also, I think a lot of the criticism that the Republicans are voicing for the new budget is all on the tax hikes. But they should be criticizing the spending increases, not the tax hikes. In fact,
maybe they secretly like the spending increases.
I know, and it looks ridiculous.
Exactly.
I mean, here they are attacking taxing carried interest as ordinary income. That's probably the one good part of the budget. Why should the hedge fund managers get taxed at a lower marginal rate than everybody else? It doesn't make any sense. Now, they're trying to argue that, well, this is going to create a disincentive to work. Well, taxes always create a disincentive. It applies to everybody. Why not tax the hedge fund managers the same as everybody, but then lower everybody's taxes? But the only way we can lower everybody's taxes is to cut spending. But they're not worried about the spending.
Dr. Paul, I am sure that you would find a lot more support and comfort for your candidacy amongst Republicans than amongst Democrats. And unfortunately, in this day and age, I suppose in order to get elected, except in the most unusual circumstance, you have to choose between the two. But won't you be forced, because of the intellectual honesty that's in your genes, to reject and repudiate much of what the Republicans have stood for during the presidency of George W. Bush and even up to the present moment?
Well, yes, but you know, the interesting thing about that is if you can get beyond the Republican primary, what do you think appeals to the 20% swing vote? We have 40% Democrats, 40% Republicans, and 20% swing vote. I think the independents want to hear an honest message and want to hear honestly that Republicans didn't do a very good job, that Democrats are doing an even worse job, and that there is some voice for some sort of fiscal sanity.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think that I can promote is something that needs to be promoted. There are some liberals in Congress who actually think the military wastes money. There are some conservatives who think, oh, we can cut the welfare queen off and balance the budget. But you can't do it unless you address the entire budget, both military and domestic spending. And I think independents are willing to listen to that message. And I think I could have a great time in the general election. It's just a matter of getting through a Republican primary.
Yeah, and the problem is, trying to, go the route of a third party where he maybe would find more philosophical alignment with a libertarian. The Democrats and the Republicans have it so stacked against the third party candidate, and the media plays right into it, unfortunately, that the only real chance you have is you got to get into one of these two parties. You got to find the one that's least objectionable and run in it.
See, and that's all. That comes to the root of the problem. They always want to tell me I'm supposed to vote for the lesser of two evils, and I will not condone evil, much less vote evil into power. I will fight it to my dying breath.
I wish that more people agreed with you. Dr. Paul, before we let you go, let me ask you what I asked your dad. Suddenly the Republicans seem to have found sea legs with respect to the free market. Did they discover in the Congress? Did they discover the free market? Did they read the Constitution? Or are they just trying to put their thumb in the eye of the Democrats?
I think